Today at Live on Purpose TV, you get this psychologist's top 5 tips for saving your marriage. Let's jump right in with the first problem that I see in most marriages where I'm doing relationship coaching, and that is the need to be right. And it starts with knowing that we are right. That's what has us showing up so poorly in relationships. And check it out. It's not that we think we're right. No, we know we are. We know we're right. A buddy of mine, Brett Williams, wrote a book called You Can Be Right or You Can Be Married. And I always get a kick out of his title, but I think he's onto something here. It's our need to be right that has us digging in our heels and getting into conflicts that we really don't need to get into. And this is one of the main culprits in destroying marriages. So to save your marriage, first, give up your need to be right. The next tip comes from research that was done a couple of decades ago by doctors John and Julie Gottman, who studied relationships. They came up with some of the most solid findings that we've ever had in the area of relationships. And what they found is that there is a 4-part process that predictably puts people on the risky edge of things. They called it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And I love that imagery, death and destruction as these guys ride in to end the world. Here's where it starts. Criticism. Now, criticism doesn't have to be real or intended. As long as it is perceived, it works to set off this negative cascade. Criticism leads to defensiveness, which makes sense because if you're being attacked, what do you want to do? Protect yourself. Get that shield up, which leads to the next of these 4 horsemen, contempt. Contempt is kind of like defensiveness turned hostile, where you've got your shield up and now you draw your sword because you want to get some jabs in. And that leads to the final of these 4 horsemen that the Gottmans call stonewalling. Stonewalling, putting up a stone wall. It's kind of like a more permanent form of defensiveness. It's turning away from each other instead of turning toward each other. So tip number 2 has to do with this negative cascade identified by the Gottmans. Can the criticism. Kick it out the door. I have people ask me all the time, well, what about constructive criticism? Yeah, good question. Okay, maybe there's a place for giving appropriate feedback or making requests within the relationship. But that's not what we're talking about right now. I'm talking about that constant criticism or judgment that jumps in and sets off this negative cascade. Can the criticism. Tip number 3, hone your communication skills. This is a common request that I get as a marriage or relationship coach to help us with our communication. Doc, our communication is not going well. We need help with communication. Communication happens in all couples that I'm aware of. The problem tends to be how we communicate. Some couples communicate with criticism and defensiveness and contempt and stonewalling. Does that sound familiar from the previous tip? And that's not working. One of the most profound things that I learned early in my career is to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Now, thanks to the Gottmans, we know what doesn't work. They've also identified a lot of things that do. And when we get to the things that work, we need to have effective communication skills. There are so many things that can go wrong in communication. And just type that little word into the search here on the channel and you'll find several videos that we've done about improving the communication skills. With everything that could go wrong, it's amazing that we can communicate at all. In honing communication skills, let me give you a little pointer. Most people want to be understood. That's the pointer. Don't be that person. I mean, of course you want to be understood. I get it. And it's important for you to be understood. But could you postpone your need to be understood until your spouse is satisfied that you understand them? What if you could do that? Listen first. Step up and be the one who's willing to do the understanding first. I guarantee this tip alone is going to power up your communication in ways that you probably couldn't have even anticipated. Try it out. Postpone your need to be understood until your spouse is satisfied that you understand them. Tip number 4, choose love. Here's the thing. Every interaction that you have with your spouse, or with anybody really, but we're talking about how to save your marriage here. Every interaction you have with your spouse is going to fall on one side or the other. I don't think there's a neutral option. I think every interaction will be either a love interaction or a hate interaction. And I know you hate the word hate. I do too. But that's why I picked it. Because we need to be really aware of this particular choice. And I consider love to be a choice. My second book is that title, The Love Choice, which was a collaboration with some other professional speakers. But this is the title that I chose for my particular contribution to this book. And here's why. When we interact, and it's going to be on one side or the other, we have to know how we're making that choice. And it's either a little or a lot. The big hate choices are obvious, right? I worked with a couple, I kid you not, where there was a firearm discharged. I worked with another one where there was severe physical violence and somebody went to prison. You can't shock me. I've heard the stories. Okay? Now that's clearly a hate choice, but what about those little hate choices? What about those little ones that just dig a little, or that just criticize a little, or that just are hateful a little, not a lot? Those are the more dangerous ones, especially as they pile up over time. In the essay that I contributed to this book, I pointed out that we can make a hate choice by assuming the worst, practicing pride, and thinking to destroy. Those 3 steps. That sets up the contrast. For the love choice, assume the best, practice humility, and think to create or to edify or lift. Use that as a starting place. That's tip number 4. Choose love. For my final tip, I'm going to combine almost 3 decades of clinical experience into one suggestion, and that is to practice positivity. I don't mean the trite, fluffy, just think positive stuff that you hear from motivational speakers or other folks here on YouTube. I am talking about how to properly operate the equipment of your own mind. And 2 of my books are specifically about that. You can get these books for free, by the way. Go to drpauljenkins.com, click on the big orange button. I'll send you this one. I'll pay for the book, you pay for the shipping. For this one, go to drpauljenkins.info. This is a little tip. drpauljenkins.info/portable positivity, the title there. I'll give you a free digital copy of this. If you pay for the shipping, I'll send you a physical one. I want these to be in your hands because this is how to operate the equipment. And what more important thing could we do to save our marriage than to properly operate the equipment? This is not trite, fluffy psychobabble. We're talking about some hard science that will allow you to be in a more powerful position over your own psychology. And guess what's supporting your relationship? Your psychology. That's why I want you to be in charge of it. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I want to help you to save your marriage. Get those books that I mentioned, drpauljenkins.com. For the big one, drpauljenkins.info. portable positivity for the little one. Come over to the website. We've got other resources available to you to support you in your relationship. I'll see you there soon. drpauljenkins.com.
And I wished I